Hello YouTube, StuckInAPool here, and today I've got some more Fire Emblem Heroes stuff for you. So I was kind of brainstorming some topics for ideas for a video, for stuff we could talk about. And one thing that came to me was, there are a lot of mechanics in mainstream Fire Emblem games that obviously haven't made it to Heroes yet, for one reason or another. And so I kind of wanted to think of some mechanics, ways they might be brought into Heroes, kind of how some of these things might work if they ever were to be brought to Heroes. And while I was sitting there, I thought of a few things, and I was like, well, I haven't played every game in the series. I haven't played any of the games before Binding Blade, and I don't know a lot about I don't know a whole lot about Fates. I haven't finished Echoes. I'm kind of behind on that. But anyway, my thought was I should probably turn to some other people in the Heroes community. So I took to the Reddit and I made a post, and I was like, well, basically I said, what are some mechanics that are missing from Heroes, from either Fire Emblem or any other game, honestly, that you would like to see introduced at some point, and how do you think they could go about doing it? So, I'm going to talk a little about some of those ideas. I'm going to start with some of my own, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of transition to some of the comments that I read on Reddit, and I'm going to give credit where it's due. So of the ideas I thought of before turning for help, the first thing I thought of, first off, the one that kind of the elephant in the room that everyone has been talking about and somehow just it hasn't been addressed, beast stones. We have dragon stones, so really it shouldn't be that difficult to integrate beast stones in somehow. I assume they just haven't felt like doing it, or they are planning some big release for it or something like that. I kind of looked through the Choose Your Legends 2 results, and just from a quick count, it looked like about, I think, 6 of the top 20 Fire Emblem characters that haven't made it into the game yet are beast units, so their time is kind of due. I think people want them. It would be pretty easy to integrate in the same way as dragon stones. They could make them just colored beast stone units, and they would just fit into the triangle like the dragons do, or they could make them our first melee colorless units if they wanted to. That way they kind of exist outside of the weapon triangle, and that would kind of make sense since they are beasts, but then again, dragons are in the triangle for some reason, but whatever, it's just a thought. The next idea, and something I definitely want to see, I kind of theory crafted it for 2 heroes already, and units I want to see, and originally I was hoping this would be on Leon, but it wasn't, so whatever. Summoning. It was in Sacred Stones, and it was in Echoes, sort of, not to the same extent, but I think it would be cool if there was a skill just for mages or something like that, or certain mages maybe, or unique to one character, where you could basically just summon up a revenant or something in one space, and it would be AI controlled and just have 1 health, 1 of all stats, so it couldn't really do anything other than be there to body block, just be an obstacle for your enemy to have to deal with. Like I said, be AI controlled, so you couldn't put it exactly where you needed it. You kind of just have to hope. So I don't think it would be too OP. It would be kind of up to luck, and I think it would be an interesting thing to add in. Another thing that I was thinking about that's in a lot of Fire Emblem games, and a lot of people have actually asked for this too, the silencer / lethality skill that assassins have typically had in mainstream Fire Emblem games. We don't have that yet. I understand that there's no type of percentage, chance-based anything in Heroes at the moment. Adding that in would be a little weird because of this. I think really the best way to do it, personally, would be to give an HP threshold. So basically it would be a skill for daggers only, and when it activates, if your enemy is under, say, 30% HP, it would just automatically set them to 0 HP. Whereas if they weren't, it would just have some other effect, maybe a weaker version of Moonbow or something like that. That way it wouldn't be too OP. It wouldn't do a lot unless specific conditions are met. I think this would just be another good way to make daggers a little more viable. They've gotten stronger, but I think they're still a little harder to utilize than other units. And speaking of things for dagger units, the other thought I had was, I think somehow they should be able to use their ability to steal as thieves. Obviously, there aren't really items in the game aside from, weapon skills kind of counting as items. And permanently taking something away from another unit, would be stupid. I don't and there's no way to like bank items. So the only application I thought of that could kind of work in a similar way was for basically an exclusive skill only for dagger units that could either fill the A, B, or C slot. So that if they approached an enemy, they could have the option to, instead of attacking, like it'll be like a steal option. And so whatever letter skill that is, if it was like a B skill and your enemy had a certain B skill, the thief would basically take that skill, so the enemy has no skill and the thief now has that skill. One practical application I thought of for this is maybe say you're fighting like Hector or something and he's got Vantage, and like all your enemies are low health so they can't take one hit from them, but if they could just hit him first, then they could do it, but they can't because Vantage. So your thief could go up, steal Vantage, and then he couldn't use it, and then you could finish him off without hitting that deadlock that Hector often puts people in. I don't know, just a thought. And of course it would only last for that fight. The thief wouldn't permanently get to keep that skill. So moving on to the Reddit ideas I heard, because I'm not good at making my own ideas. Starting kind of from the top here. The first suggestion that I got here was from Reddit user Planeterial, and he mentioned the capture mechanic. He mentioned a lot of things, but one thing he mentioned was the capture mechanic that was available in originally 3C 776, and now recently in Fates, but just with Niles and Obero. And basically, you could fight an enemy, and you would have lowered stats, basically, but if you kill them, then you get to basically take them into your army. And I believe it only really worked for generic units and like maybe some bosses. I'm not entirely sure. But as for implementing it in heroes, it would depend. As a way to get more free heroes, I think intelligent systems would strike that down real quick. They want you to buy orbs, so they're already giving you free heroes, so giving you another way to do it, I don't think they would do. They could implement it into something they already have. Maybe like instead of giving you a bonus hero through the Tempest Trials, they could give you something else, and then you could capture the boss of the Tempest Trial and just make that basically the reward. And maybe for or maybe they could add it in for the daily rotation hero battles, or maybe you could just get one of each generic unit just through like the training tower or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. Honestly, all the ideas I'm suggesting are a lot like the Grand Hero battles, so it's really not that innovative. So if you have better ideas for how to create a capture mechanic, just post below. He also suggested stat boosts for older units, or like the units that have lower overall base stat totals. I think that's a really good idea. I think that's kind of where they were going with the whole Sacred Seal thing. They're like, oh, this unit has lower stats, but you can make it up with the seal. Then people were like, no, I'm just going to put it on my OP units, make them more OP. So that didn't work out. I think that's kind of the way they're going with the weapon refinements. I think they're going to keep adding weapon refinements for weaker units, but it's going to take a while before they get to all the units. So I feel like just making like quests for like the units that aren't as good specifically to get like certain items that could just give them permanent stat boosts or something like that would be good. I'm not entirely sure how the logistics would work for that. Like if you had to get them to 5 stars, do a specific quest, and then from then on they just permanently had like 2 more attack and 2 more speed or something like that. I don't know how well that would work. I'm not sure, but it does sound really cool. And then he kind of talked about general boosts for daggers, specifically letting them all refine or just innately have close counter. He argued that daggers were already able to do this in Fire Emblem games, but this is also true for mages in most games and archers in some games. So you can kind of make the same argument for them. But I do think daggers do need some help. I don't know if that's specifically what they need. They're still going to have trouble doing damage in a lot of instances. But they do need a bit of a boost. And kind of going from that, I got another comment about thieves from, I think it was a reply to that, from user Nano1124. And he said something about basically letting daggers apply debuffs before combat instead of after combat. And that kind of makes a little more sense with the whole ninja thing. They kind of prepare for combat before. You think they would want to get every advantage before they go into a fight. So yeah, that makes sense. Overall, it might be a little overpowered since, like, I think it's Saizo's dagger. I think it applies a buff to him and a debuff to like the enemy and all the enemies around him. So I don't know how it would work. Like, I guess just the debuff, not the buff for him. Otherwise, it might be a little too OP. I don't know. It would basically make daggers more able to be like, it would help them fit into the one-hit KO meta a little better. That's for sure. But it seems like they've kind of leaned towards keeping them utility and like support for like buffing and debuffing. So I think if they wanted to lean on that more, and they could always, I think, kind of like how Jafar got his refinery option to have built-in like water sweep. I don't remember. It'd be cool if daggers were able to get built-in sweep so that they could easily apply their buffs and not take a lot of damage in return. I don't know. I think if they were going that way, that would be the way to do it. Another really good suggestion I got from user Snowisky Runa. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to pronounce all these names wrong and not get the references and stuff that they're based on, so I apologize. Anyway, they suggested a Link Arena, kind of like in the Game Boy Advance era of games, where you could play against friends, but a lot of people just did it to like try out different teams and stuff. That's what I did. I didn't have many friends that played Fire Emblem, to be honest. I had like one or two. I think this would be a good solution to what people are always saying about the friends list. You really can't you can't do much with your friends besides like hope you get to see their units in voting gauntlet. That's really it. So I think like adding that to a friend list so that you could like just, you know, go to the friend list, click them, and like fight their arena team or something like that. I think it'd be really cool. The question would be, would it just be for fun and like bragging rights and like setting up meme teams for your friend to see or whatever? Or would it be something that you could actually get rewards from? I think that would be kind of cool. I think it would be really cool as like a quest, like defeat 5 friends in the friendly arena challenges or something like that. It'd be neat. Obviously, the rewards couldn't be too good, I wouldn't think, but depends on how generous they're feeling. Whatever. Okay, next we have a suggestion from Iron Hero. Basically, he says that it'd be really cool if they brought a way to actually like promote your heroes, like actual promotion, not unlock potential. Because unlock potential, it makes them stronger, but it doesn't do anything in the typical sense of like Fire Emblem promotions, where like you would get, besides a stat boost, you'd be able to use new weapons and stuff. So basically, he or she is saying something like that. And while I do kind of question how they could implement a unit being able to use multiple weapon types that would kind of change their color, it would be really cool if it at least allowed them access to a unique skill. We kind of touched on that earlier, but that would be a good way to make more units effective. But then there are a lot of units in this game, so unique skills for everyone would be difficult. And as for the suggestion of like letting heroes use different weapons, I don't think that's realistic, because they could easily make more money just by continuing to release alternate versions, especially with, you know, the new Erica we just got. They've kind of set that precedent already. They're like, oh, well, we could just make you try and roll for another Erica instead of letting her switch weapons. Now, I will say the difference is that Erica obviously can never use dark magic unless you glitch Sacred Stone, so it's still possible, but I don't think it's very likely. Another thing they suggested was basically using weapon skins, and I think from reading it, what I think they meant is just like you could have them equip the weapon you want them to use, but if they've learned other weapon skills, they could just swap out the cosmetic, like the sprite image of another weapon. So say like I have a Raven, but I want him to be Santa Claus Raven, so I want him to have the, you know, Sacco gifts, but Basilicos is too good and I'm not passing that up, so I could let him use that. And I assume that you meant like the unit has to have inherited that weapon to use the skin, in which case I think intelligent systems could get behind this, because then you'd have to be rolling to get a lot more 5-star units to inherit the weapon skin. Probably, I think they'd be behind that idea, and I think it's kind of cool. But obviously, and I think you mentioned it, it would have to only apply on your screen, because, like you said, if you run into like a unit and you see like them with like an iron sword or something, you're like, oh, okay, whatever, and then it's actually like a brave sword, and you get screwed, and you're like, oh, but I didn't. People would get mad about that, so that was a good suggestion overall. And then the last thing they mentioned was basically just overall more cosmetic things to be added to the game. And I think this is a good idea because, you know, thinking back to the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblems, one of my favorite things was the cool sprite animations, and you had mentioned that having more animations, especially unique animations for like Zephyl and stuff, would be really cool, and it would kind of freshen up the game and make it feel a little more fun overall. The only thing is, I don't see them doing it just because, again, money. They're not going to gain anything from it. They're just going to kind of lose from it. It could be a big system update. Maybe at some point they could do it, and it would require changing a lot of heroes, I feel like, and I don't know if they'd want to take on that kind of project. But who knows? I'm sure they'll continue to release more heroes with unique animations like Fjorm, though. I just don't think they'll do it to older heroes. Another suggestion from the user Greycolors said that it'd be cool to see weapons that do percentage-based damage like Eclipse does, and also mentioned that they would be kind of like a sweep-style weapon so the enemy couldn't counterattack. I don't know how valuable that would be in our one-hit KO meta that we live in, and you mentioned you're like, oh, I'm not sure if it'd be that great. I don't know. It may work in some instances. It kind of depends. Since there are a lot of skills that are based on HP thresholds, I think in a lot of instances it would actually be helpful, unless you're running into someone with like Vanish or Desperation. But like in terms of like maybe like armors that use Wary Fighter, I could see it being handy. But it would just, like you said, have to be like a sweep thing. It could just do percentage damage and like only hit once or something like that. But it's definitely a good idea. I just logistically don't know how well it would work unless it's just on a unit. It would work on units that have naturally low attack like Odin and stuff. That might actually be cool for like an Odin build, but who knows. Next suggestion I got is from user Anima175, basically just saying it would be really cool if they brought in a triangle attack that you could do. So a triangle attack would be really, really cool. It's just, to be honest, I have never, ever in all my time playing Fire Emblem actually used a triangle attack. Partially because I don't tend to use more than one flyer. I'm not too big on Pegasus Knights, especially just because like I always hated the bow effectiveness and being I hated dealing with that. But anyway, I feel like it would really only be viable if you're running a flyer team and you don't have a flying mage and you run into just a real high defense enemy. But the thing is, if it worked like it would in the base game, it would just guarantee a critical hit. So I guess that would translate to a 300% damage increase naturally. But if you're doing like 0 damage, it's not going to help you at all. So, I don't know. And you mentioned using specials and stuff like that. I don't know if that would work all that well. That might be a bit overkill in most instances, but I guess it already is kind of overkill. I don't know. Maybe just if you're near 2 flyer allies, your special automatically procs or something like that. Next, user lazygreenfox suggested having skills that are based on gender, like in Fates, like the Desmoiselle skill. So I think these would be neat little skills to have. I don't think they would have a real heavy influence on the meta. I mean, the only people that would be like, yeah, I need this, are people that try to use mixed gender teams, which I don't know that anyone does that unless they're just like pairing up their ships or whatnot. I don't know, whatever. But I guess it could just be like if you have a male unit and it could be like a drive for female units nearby that give them like attack and defense, and like a female could give like speed and res drive to male allies nearby, maybe. I don't know, just a thought. And an interesting suggestion. Definitely one of the more unique ideas. And this has already kind of been talked about, but users All According to Kaiki and Mr. Creed, they basically what they said is it would be cool if all heroes had unique skills, which we kind of talked about. And one of them mentioned that it could be based on like personal quests or missions or like maps that each unit has. Again, I think that's really cool. It would kind of tie into the whole promotion aspect like I talked about. But it's a lot of work for how many units are in the game right now. With 200 plus units, that's a lot of work to do. A lot of skills to make, a lot of missions and whatnot. But I do think it'd be cool if they started introducing it like slowly and just started giving out unique skills to like the lower tiered heroes, the ones if they looked and saw like what units are used at least and started giving them like unique skills. I think that'd be a good way to start working it in. And it would definitely kind of add a little more flavor to the meta. Another suggestion from user Igneous4224 basically said it makes in the base games units could carry a lot of weapons and switch them up as they needed to. I think that's pretty cool. They said that it wouldn't work well to let units switch like colors mid battle. That'd be weird. Let's not do that. But it would make sense, like if you had a unit just running like Wodow or Slang Edge, I think they said, and you could just have like an Armor Slayer on backup if you needed it. Good idea. And they said basically there would have to be some kind of penalty if you switch, like you couldn't move, you couldn't attack. and it couldn't just automatically switch to the best weapon if you get attacked. Like, I think you'd have to use a turn and like not move to switch weapons maybe. And I think that would work really well for like chain challenges and squad assault and like arena assault maybe. If you go into it and you're like, oh, I wish they had this other weapon that they knew, or that skill that they learned, whatever. It'd be cool if you could change it mid-battle. I think that would work pretty well. I don't think it would be too OP. I think as long as the AI couldn't use it, then you'd be good. If the AI could use it, that would be bad. Another suggestion from user KiraLight18 said it would be cool if we had palette swaps like in Smash. I think that's actually a really cool idea, and actually it would be fairly easy to implement, since you could basically just take the existing artwork and like colorize like a certain part of it. I think that would be really cool. They wouldn't have to make whole new art. Overall, I think that's a great idea. They also suggested being able to spend arena medals to buy orbs, and I would be behind that, but there's no way. Even if the price was super steep, I don't think they'd let us trade in any type of like free currency for orbs. I imagine they'd want to limit that to what they give us through like daily orbs and quests and stuff, and then just make you buy the rest. A suggestion from estrangedeskimo. Basically, a lot of people asked for this one too. More victory conditions for fights. So far we just have like route and survive. That's really about it. Instead, it'd be cool if we added C's. That would be really easy. Just add a throne to a route map. It would basically just add one more extra little thing you have to do at the end. Wouldn't really change all that much. Same for defend. You could just add a throne or whatever. It would be a little harder than the C's, because then you'd have to stay in one spot while you're defending. You couldn't like kind of move around the map. So that'd be neat. Again, easy to implement. And then a defeat boss map. This is it's a lot like the route maps, honestly. I think the only really way to differentiate it would be to make reinforcements keep coming until you got to the boss. And that would actually be a little overwhelming, I think, for new players, so that could be like end game content maybe. But I think that's a good idea. I think that would be a good idea for like a Grand Hero battle. I guess that's kind of what it already sort of is for ones that have reinforcements, but they do end eventually. It would just be a Grand Hero battle with reinforcements that never end, which is kind of scary. And then escape maps are a thing too, and that could be the same thing. Just reinforcements keep coming until you get to a certain spot. Then you could just kind of cheese it with like cavalry and dancers or something if you really wanted to, since the maps are pretty small. But it's still a pretty good idea. Then user Regolio, I believe, suggested this and actually made their own thread about it and linked to it. Says we should have treasure chests, which, great, yeah, that's a great idea. Obviously, the only thing would be that it would have to be in a limited way, like maybe put it on some type of daily map rotation, like the daily hero battles, or something to that nature, where you could just go through the fight, get to the treasure chest, open it, and then it'll remain like open and empty throughout the day until the game resets for the day. And it could just have like a randomized present, like maybe an orb if you're lucky, and maybe feathers, but like shards and stamina potions and all that too. Definitely a good idea. And they actually suggested in their thread that you would have to have either keys or dagger unit, and the keys could be like you could trade in some type of currency for keys and just have so many that any unit could use or whatever. Just kind of bank them like you would any other item. Good idea. And then Lucina TheExalt has a suggestion. They would like to be able to trade heroes. I don't know about this. This one's pretty controversial. Being able to trade with your friends, it's a cool idea, but it might kind of break the game. I don't know. It's hard to say. The only way I think to really make it fair would be to have like a wonder trade kind of system like Pokemon has, where you're like, I'm just going to throw this unit out there and get some random unit back. Then you can just keep going and hope you got lucky with something and you get just like 15 rise in a row and just hate yourself. No. Another maybe way to make it work is like go to your friend list, suggest a hero you might want to get rid of. They get that notification, see your hero, suggest a hero to trade for it, and then you both have to confirm it maybe. But even then, I don't know how I feel about hero trading. I don't know if it's a good idea. No matter how they worked it in, they'd have to be real careful about it. Then Ganbaru maybe? Sorry. Basically thinks we should have a rescue mechanic, and that's, another great idea. It's been in Fire Emblem for a long time. And the way they're kind of suggesting it, rescuer approaches rescuee. Rescuee kind of disappears. and it's going to occupy the same spot basically as the rescuer, but they're not effectively going to not be there. Rescuer has to have higher health to be able to hold said rescuee. If they don't, they can't do it in the first place. And if they take a hit, then they're automatically going to drop them back where they found them. The only issue with that, if there's an enemy in the space, I guess it would change and they drop it behind them maybe? I don't know. And they said basically the rescuer can move whatever remaining spaces they had before they rescued away while they're carrying this person, and then they could like drop them on the next turn. And then they said obviously cavalry and flyers can't be rescued, they're off limits here. The only thing I would add to this, I think it's a good idea, the only thing I would add is the rescuer would probably get like a speed, that the rescuer have their speed dropped or something like that to kind of make up for the fact that they're carrying another unit. You know, give them some type of deficit. I think this would be I think the easiest way to implement this would be as an assist skill. I think that would work really well since we have swap, we have reposition. I think this would kind of fit in pretty well with those, even though honestly I think that swap and reposition were kind of their answer to rescue, but it's still something they could add. Next, user Awain for Life suggests Flux Plus. Wants to see that. I don't know if I'm being memed here because I know Thoron Plus was a meme for a while, but either way, I think it would be cool. And you said you'd really like to see the actual cool Flux animation, and I'm totally with you there. I don't remember what it looks like in Heroes, to be off the top of my head, to be honest, but I know it looks cool in the Game Boy Advance games, so hey, bring it. I'm all for it. User, oh god, I'm gonna get this wrong. I'm gonna say Once de Bronze. I'm not sure. They kind of mentioned something based on the whole silencer idea, saying that daggers should be able to get like a skill, kind of like Vengeance but backwards. So basically, if a dagger unit attacks an enemy and their special triggers, then their damage will get boosted by however much health is missing from the enemy. So that way, if an enemy is low, you know, there's a good chance they're going to finish them off. And if they have a lot of health still, then it's really not going to add much of anything at all. So it kind of fits the whole thing I was mentioning earlier with it. So I think that's cool. And the last thing that was kind of mentioned in this thread was the idea of a sound test. So I'm totally behind that. I would say, though, it would only really work for music that's already in Heroes. And I don't know if you're implying that it should have like all the game soundtracks, because that would be really cool, but that would make Heroes so much bigger, and it would take up a lot more space on my phone. And I got a little cruddy phone. It doesn't have a whole lot of space. I don't want it to take any more space than it already does, so maybe not. But definitely for Heroes music, I'm totally behind that. So that's all the feedback that I read kind of in that thread. And I think they're all really good ideas, so hopefully we'll start to see them kind of flow into Heroes at some point. But don't forget, there is a way to send feedback in-game. So if you feel really strongly about any of this and you're like, where is it? Like, especially Beaststones, I know people are mad about that. If you want them to hear your feedback, submit feedback through the game. I don't remember exactly how to do it, but I'm going to put screens up here somewhere. I don't know how to do it at the time of recording, but in post editing I will put the screens up of like where you go to submit feedback. So I appreciate you all for watching this video. I got a little long, and I appreciate those of you that submitted ideas. I'm hoping that some of these things will get implemented fairly soon. So anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you all have good luck in your summons. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye guys.